Welcome back to Musical People and Journey's Rock Album Review Show. Welcome to my panel, to Paul, to Dave, to Chris, and to Ian. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
A bit more energy. This must be a rock show. Come on. How exciting is this? Well, look, if you tuned in for the first show for the first time, what is the show all about? We are reviewing the latest rock albums. We match them head to head. We say which albums we would buy. We rate them out of 5 for our listening pleasure. For our listening pleasure only. And then will they get into our Hall of Fame? Will they get into our shortlist for Album of the Year, which is coming up? We're into our last few months now before the big one. So who have we got today? So we've got two bands, Teenage Risk and their album Still Love, and they're up against Candlebox and The Long Goodbye. Right, well, Teenage Risk from Los Angeles, USA. Band members are Anthony Salazar and Marshall Gallagher. So the band was formed in 2014 by vocalist and bass guitarist Kabicha Mohagar, lead guitarist and vocalist Marshall Gallagher, drummer Anthony Salazar. Inspired by alternative rock and grunge music from the 90s, the group wrote and recorded their debut album Days, released in 2015 on Pale Wave, and then they released their Live at the Noise Coalition before signing to Epitaph Records, releasing their debut album, studio album Chrome Neon Jesus in 2018. So, Teenage Risk. I'm going to start with what is a fan of Teenage Risk, which was Paul. Because Paul, when we said about splitting up, who was going to review, you went, I need to be listening to Teenage Risk, because you've been a bit of a fan of theirs over the years. So let's start with you then. So Teenage Risk was. Were you looking forward to this album? Did it meet your expectations?
Yeah, I was looking forward to the album because I rated the previous album, Earth is a Black Hole, very highly. And it was murky, dark, and ironic, and had this wonderful grunge shoegaze sound. The Still Love album is a much more hopeful and lighter-toned album. That is not to say that dark overtones don't ripple through the 12 songs on this album. It is just the band are morphing themselves into something different. And Still Love is a process of that change. Is it as good as Earth is a Black Hole? For me, no. That is not to say it's not a great album. Far from it. It just doesn't carry the same sort of impact. Songs like Sunshine and the title song Still Love still hit my playlist, though.
Okay. So you said the word shoegaze. What's shoegaze?
It's like that Nirvana effect, guitar effect, where someone's gazing at their shoes while they're playing it. It's that guitar drone that is quite unique to that grunge effect.
I never heard of it before. Never heard of shoegaze before. Learn something every day, don't you? Now, somebody who never looks at his shoes, and normally quite obvious by what he wears. Chris, then let's find out about you. How did this gaze? Did this gaze well for you?
So first off, I'm going to say that I'll take my sartorial elegance advice from someone else. But in terms of Teenage Risk, it's a band that I'd kind of heard of before I listened to a couple of their songs, but hadn't really sort of committed to previously. So this album, I had a thing when I was younger around the long instrumental openings and endings to songs. Really like that in this album. This actually had me going digging back into the back catalogue and looking at more of Teenage Risk. I would agree with Paul that this is not their best album. I think as you say, Earth is a Black Hole was a sort of a better outing for them, but still this one I really like listening to. It's wax lyrical, wax poetic, sorry, and diorama were the ones that I picked out more as sort of, they're a bit more relaxed than the rest of the album. It's a bit more kind of chilled out, relaxed rock than the rest of the album. But I kind of liked it. It was it's an odd one. I enjoyed listening to it, and it put me back into looking into the back catalogue. But I wouldn't have chosen this album over earlier music. I'd listened to their earlier stuff rather than this one in particular.
Cool. Okay, Dave. Teenage wrist. I mean, we do like you do like a bit of wrist action, I believe, from rumours.
I'm just going to ignore you now, Nigel. I think it's probably for the best.
I was going to keep that for Ian, but I've already had a little wind up on Ian today, so let's.
Well, you called me a queen in the first one.
I know, right? Yeah. Okay, this will be the last. I'll direct that. So.
But no. I mean, this is not something that I would typically listen to, I've got to say. But musically, from the start, it just really managed to hold my interest. Not because it necessarily varies in style too much, but I found a lot of the guitar riffs really sort of imaginative. They weren't sort of what I would normally expect to hear from this sort of album. Opening track, Sunshine, perfect example of that. I love the guitar riff at the beginning of that song. And Cigarette 2 Steph is another highlight for me. Did find the vocals very hit and miss throughout. Sometimes I quite enjoyed them, and then other times it just didn't really do much for me. As I say, ultimately not something I would choose to listen to, but a very solid effort nonetheless. And I might be tempted to go back and listen to some more of their back catalogue to see if there's anything else there that might appeal to me a little bit more.
Cool. Ian, Teenage Wrist?
I'd not heard of Teenage Wrist before. Certainly not for the last 30 odd years anyway, that's for sure. And still love. It's heavy power rock, it's grunge, very lazy, it's very safe for the most part. There was some what I did like, which gave it a little bit of a tick up for me, was there were very slight hints of British and 90s American punk influences, just very faintly brushed into it, which I thought was very clever. But beyond that, I just thought that it was just not hugely imaginative. There was only one standout-ish track for me, and that was Diorama. Not because I particularly enjoyed it, but because it was different from the rest of the album. I agree with Chris, it was just very, very samey, and just one or two tracks that were different. Not my thing, this album. Would definitely look for more from an album, whether I like the genre or not. I just found it very lazy and safe.
Well, I don't think you can. Well, for me personally, I don't think you can describe this as lazy, because it was quite angry. It was kind of trying to punch you in the face a little bit, and that was a little bit hit and miss for me. I enjoyed the song. Standout song for me was Sunshine. I thought this was a really solid album. It was a little bit. I don't know. I couldn't quite. There were some aspects of it like it. I do like it edging in. But Ian's right. It does edge into that punk rock. I think it more than likely brushes it. I think it takes a good old swipe at it, really, as well. So, and it tries to merge in that kind of punk rock influences with kind of more indie kind of rock. I found it a little bit angry, but I didn't believe the anger. To be quite frank, I don't know why. Because some albums you go, wow, that was like, we did Asking Alexandria. You believe the anger when you're listening to it. So I didn't know if it was just anger for the sake of anger or just for effect. I don't know. It just didn't quite click for me. But I did enjoy the album. I thought it was a pretty solid effort. And yeah, it was pretty darn good. I enjoyed it. Really good. Really, really good. So solid stuff. Okay. So they're up against a band called Candlebox. An interesting story, really, because Candlebox didn't quite make my shortlist, bizarrely, and it was really hard because there was such great sounding albums on there. We were going to do as Friends Rust called Any Joy, but their album was delayed, and Candlebox with Lango By came in as well. So who are Candlebox? Well, they are from Florida, United States. The band members are Damien Moyer, Timothy Kirkpatrick, Joseph Gaylett. I think that's the band. Anyway, am I talking about the right band here? Yeah, they are. Yeah. I mean, there's not a huge amount that I know about Candlebox. Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. I've lost my. I do apologise for my listening pleasures here. They are from Seattle. I had the wrong piece of paper. Seattle, Washington. They're Kevin Martin, Adam Curry, Brian Quinn, Island Scars, and BJ Kerwin. They're an American rock band from Seattle, Washington. Formed in 1990. The group has released 7 studio albums, several charted in compilation. Candlebox found immediate success with release with a self-titled album in July 1993, featuring 4 singles: Change, You, Far Behind and Cover Me, reached the top 20, and the album was certified quadruple platinum. So, yeah, they've been around a while. Chris, let's start with you then, my friend. Have you heard of Candlebox, and what did you think?
So I have to say I hadn't heard of Candlebox before, and you'd possibly chosen not the greatest person to start with, because this really wasn't my thing. I didn't get on with it at all. I like the musical side behind it, but as we said earlier, I didn't feel like the lyrics were sung by someone that was committed to what he was singing about. It kind of sounded like they were, to me anyway, it felt like they were on their 10th show. They've been doing this for a while, and it's just singing to finish off the songs. Really, it didn't kind of get it in the way that I did with some of the others that were, some of the songs that was on Candlebox, certainly, not on Teenage Wrist. And I'd say it would be kind of a good background work soundtrack. It's not gonna distract you from what you're trying to do. That's just that's how I came out of this one. It really didn't do it for me. And one of the things that it's kind of a telling thing for me that if you go into a certain popular music streaming app and you take a look at their most popular songs, none of this album is in their top 5 or even their top 10 songs.
Well, it wouldn't be, right? Because it's only just released, so it wouldn't quite get into.
So if you take a look at Teenage Wrist to Hold an Absence, some of the new stuff is right there in the top 5 or top 10. It's popular at the moment, and with Candlebox, it just isn't. I don't know if it's a telling thing for you guys, but for me, it's just kind of this didn't hit any notes for me at all.
Right. Well, Dave, how about you?
I'm going to go the other end of the scale. I think I really enjoyed this. Great little album. Right up my street, to be fair. I've got to admit, vocally, I can kind of see where Chris is coming from. But they do a good job of mixing up the tempos throughout. I think keeps things interesting. And musically, it's a very solid rock offering. I would describe it as sort of fairly middle of the road, not in a bad way. Kind of, it's enough to appeal to multiple tastes. If you're into your harder stuff, there is elements there that will appeal. Again, if you're into your softer stuff as well, though, you're going to probably quite enjoy it as well. Personal highlight for me was Cell Phone Jesus. Absolutely love that song. Would recommend this to any fan of rock, because I'm pretty sure there's something you'll find here to enjoy. But as I say, that's just my opinion.
And it's a good opinion, mate. Don't anybody don't anybody say that it's not a good opinion, or is it? Ian, what did you think? You think that was a good opinion? Would you agree with him or Chris?
As an opinion, I think everyone's opinions are good. As a review, I'm leaning more with Dave. Well, I'm actually firmly in the camp with Dave.
Yeah, the camp of Dave.
It's really strange because me and Chris normally tend to like the similar sort of music generally, but not on this occasion. It would seem. The Long Goodbye, I thought it was a superb blend of rock, punk, and groove, with a hint of 60s experimental rock. Just a real little twang in the background there, and that was just track 1, Punks. It just explosive. During the track, we're asked, "Do I have your attention?" Yes, you can do. Absolutely grabbed me straight away. When Dave said this is a fantastic little album, I agree with you, except there's nothing little about it. It just goes and just stayed there in my albums I love playlist. It's made it over there straight away, and I don't transfer stuff over at all until after we've done production and I'm setting up the next lot of albums into the Rock Review podcast playlist. This one's straight in that playlist. Track 2, What Do You Need? I mean, the production and show value are akin to something you expect from Van Halen or Aerosmith. I would love to see these guys rock absolutely live. I'd love to see it. It'd be amazing. And this thing just continues. You know, you've got the variation, like Dave said, mixing it up a bit all the way through, and it's energetic, soulful, and really a knockout album. I love this. Standout tracks for me in terms of power was Elegant or Elegante, whichever. That I love, beautifully sort of honest, brutal honesty, and the acoustic standout of Maze. Was it Maze, I think? And absolutely agree. Cell Phone Jesus, what a track. Not a bad album.
Paul, will it be The Long Goodbye, or will it be A Very Short Hello?
Well, it is going to be The Long Goodbye because it's Candlebox's final album.
Or is it now?
It is. It's the last album they're doing.
Why?
So if you're going to want to, they're just splitting up and calling it a day, moving on to other projects, I should imagine. But as we know in the industry, you know, a band's final farewell is never final, is it? But it doesn't mean they're going out with a whimper. The once grunge band that moved into the direction of bluesy rock have influenced bands, there's many bands, in the 90s and onwards. Candlebox are loud and proud in this album, and with their music career, they probably have a right to. Having said that, on first impressions, I really like this album, more so than Teenage Wrist's effort. But after further listens, I find Long Goodbye is just a bit too samey for my tastes.
Why? Where is my flagger? Is it going to be hoisted up into that little tiny camp of Cully, or will I be joining the mobsters in terms of how potentially good this album was? Cully, you're all alone, my friend. This was a stunningly good album. Probably one of my favourite albums of the month, actually. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Punk. What Do We Need? Maze, standout tracks, absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I mean, it's a really good, fine example of indie rock. And I mentioned about whether, I mentioned earlier on about them coming in at the last minute. And I mentioned that because, oh my God, I'm so pleased they did. I'm so pleased that I picked this album out amongst everything. I thought it was absolutely terrific. Foot tapping, brilliant. Lots of variation into it. Paul mentioned about a bit of bluesy rock in there. It just had everything. I think it's a really great example of a really brilliant indie rock album. Terrific, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Please don't split up. I want to hear more. I have to go back into, if I have ever time to go back into Candlebox's back catalogue. This was a damn fine album. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And when you keep going back and you want to hear more, and it was a difficult month because we reviewed so many albums this month, but it took me a few days to come off this album. Absolutely terrific. Right, who is going to win this Battle of the Band, Teenage Wrist versus Candlebox? Oh, it could be close then. Paul, let's start with you then. Teenage Wrist.
It's a 4 from me.
4 from you. Chris. Oh, Chris, schoolboy error.
3.5 for me on this one.
Schoolboy error, Chris. Schoolboy error.
3.5 for me for this one.
3.5 from you, Chris. Dave?
3.5 from me as well.
Solid scores here. Ian?
So just a 1.5 from me for this one. Yeah, not my thing.
Shocking. Oh, they were going to be so close. They were 7, 14.5, 15, 16, I believe. Is that right? 7, 10.5, 14.5, 16. I mean, still a solid score. Will it be enough, though, against the mighty Candlebox? Paul?
It's a 2.5 from me.
For Candlebox?
Candlebox.
You were just raving about them!
No, I said I found it to be samey.
In the end?
The more listened...
In the end?
Yeah, repeated listens, I just found it samey, and I probably wouldn't listen to it again.
Chris?
It's only a 2 from me, I'm afraid. Maybe I was listening to it at the wrong time, but it just really wasn't my thing.
Oh, get in the car, crank it up. Dave?
4.5 for me.
4.5. Ian?
And separate it. This was a 5.
5!
5 as well.
Get in the
5.
banner.
Absolutely.
Get
That's 10.
in
I
the
can definitely
banner.
count 10 there.
Yeah.
Shocking. Between me and Trish, it was a 4.5. So there we go. Right, well, it's going to be close, isn't it? But not close enough, I don't think. So we're looking 9, 14, 16, 18 and a half. That doesn't get to a Hall of Fame. But it does win the Battle of the Bands here. So myself, Dave, and Ian all would spend our hard-earned cash on Candlebox, whereas you two would spend your money on Teenage Wrist. But let's be honest about it, both really good, solid albums. But that's what it's all about. It's our musical taste. It's about, listening to it, and sometimes we can tune in on an album, sometimes we can't. But congratulations to Candlebox. The Long Goodbye. Hopefully not The Long Goodbye. Hopefully we can hear more of that absolutely brilliant band. So thank you very much. Thank you. If you like what you hear, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave your comments if you agree or disagree. Whose camp would you have been in, particularly on Candlebox? So thank you to my panel, to Dave, to Ian, to Paul, and to Chris. Goodbye, everybody, and keep rocking and keep safe. Bye.
Bye.
Keep working.
Adios.
Bye.